Namaste to everyone. Today we are going to have a detailed discussion about Bhagavad Gita, its global journey throughout the world. As a philosophical text, really, I am very much interested to discuss with you on this topic. It is really an honor to present to you today the subject that not only bridges the East and West but also touches the timeless and universal nature of human inquiry, the transmission of Bhagavad Gita into Western thought. The Bhagavad Gita, or the Song of the Divine, stands as one of the most profound spiritual and philosophical texts ever written. Though rooted in the context of ancient Indian Dharma and metaphysics, its reaches has extended far beyond the banks of Ganga and into the libraries, minds, and hearts of the West. From philosophy and psychology to literature and leadership, Gita has profoundly shaped the modern intellectual and modern landscape. The journey of Gita to Western world began in the late 18th century when Charles Wilkinson, under the patronage of Sir Warren Hastings, translated the sacred Sanskrit text into English in 1785. The pioneering translation became the gateway through which Indian philosophical thought entered the European consciousness. It was more than a scholarly effort, it marked a historic cultural exchange that would reshape ideas of self-duty, ethics, and transcendence in the Western world. In the present discussion, we will trace the Gita's journey across continents and centuries. We will see how thinkers like Arthur Sofner found it as a philosophy of renunciation, how Nietzsche interpreted it as a celebration of strength and moral action, how Thoreau and Emerson, pioneers of American transcendentalism, turned it to its version for spiritual inspiration, and how even modern fields like business, ethics, and leadership studies are increasingly drawing upon the Gita's timeless. The Gita is not just a religious scripture, it is a universal manual of life, offering insight that transcends boundaries of time, geography, and belief system. It invites the reader to contemplate the nature of action, duty, detachment, and the eternal self. So let us begin the exploration how a sacred conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, set in the heart of battlefield thousands of years ago, centuries here, continues to echo across the intellectual battlefields of modern Western thought. With this brief introduction, let us proceed to the Bhagavad Gita, how it has been translated to the Western languages. In 1785, Charles Wilkinson is the first person who translated Bhagavad Gita into English language. The Bhagavad Gita was virtually unknown to the West world until the late 18th century. This first significant step in its transmission to the Western came with the English translation by Charles Wilkins in 1785, which marked a turning point in the study of Hindu philosophy outside India. Charles Wilkinson was a British Orientalist and Indologist who worked for the East India Company in West Bengal. He was a scholar of Sanskrit and once for the first European to master the language. Under the patronage of Warren Hastings, the then Governor General of India, Wilkinson translated Bhagavad Gita into English in 1785. The reason behind the translation of Bhagavad Gita into language is because the British colonial administration in India recognized that understanding the Indian philosophy, religion, and governance was crucial for maintaining control over the subcontinent. So, with this reason, Warren Hastings, an admirer of Indian culture, encouraged Wilkinson to study and translate Sanskrit text of Bhagavad Gita. The East India Company supported his effort as a part of broader intellectual movement to understand Indian traditions. The first book of Bhagavad Gita by Wilkinson, entitled like this, Bhagavad Gita, or Dialogue of Krishna and Arjuna, which was printed in London 1785. This book was the first complete translation of Gita into European language. It was published by the Honorable East India Company and became one of the most influential books in the study of Hinduism in the West. The title of the book, again I will present you, is Wilkinson Charles, the Bhagavad Gita, or Dialogue of Krishna and Arjuna, London, Norse 1785 publication. The publication of Bhagavad Gita in English language attracted European intellectuals. Wilkinson translation inspired European philosophers, writers, and intellectuals. It was particularly influential in Germany, France, and England, where scholars began exploring Indian philosophy. It is the starting point of exploring about Indian cultural traditions, especially Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, Puranas, epics, and other Indian heritage literature. The publication of Bhagavad Gita in English was attracted by German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, discovered Wilkinson translation in early 19th century. He was deeply influenced by Indian spiritual traditions, particularly Vedanta and Gita. Based on this text, he wrote in the World Will and Representation that the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita were the most renowned and elevated reading in the world. He admired the Gita's emphasis on renunciation, detachment, and self-realization, seeing it as compatible with his pessimistic view of life. The book which he has published is The World as Will and Representation, translated by E.F.J. Payne, New York, Doyer in 1969. Schopenhauer was very much attracted one of the sloka from Bhagavad Gita. The sloka reads like this: Karmanyevadhikaraste ma paleshu kadachana ma karma palaheturbarmate sajno yasva karmani. The meaning of this sloka is, you are the right to perform your prescribed duties, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. Do not become attached to the results, nor should you be attached to inactions. In interpretation, the Schopenhauer saw this verse as a call to renunciation and self-discipline. He believed that true happiness lies in the detachment from desires, similar to his own philosophy of will and suffering. Another German philosopher, Nietzsche, was also exposed to Indian philosophy through Wilkinson's translation of Bhagavad Gita. He admired Krishna's message to Arjuna as a philosophy of action and power. He saw the Bhagavad Gita's concept of dharma, that is duty, as similar to his idea of the Ubermensch, that is Superman, a superior individual who transcends weakness and acts with purpose. One of the sloka which attracted him is Sadharmamapi chavekshana vikamrutam dharmadi adeksha yodanta kshatriyasya navidyate. The meaning of this sloka is, you should not veer in the face of your own duty. Even consider your personal dharma. As a warrior, for a kshatriya, there is nothing more than auspicious than a righteous war. Nietzsche was very much attracted with this sloka. He himself interprets this sloka like this: Krishna is urging Arjuna to overcome inner hesitation and moral doubt and to act according to his essential nature, his dharma as a kshatriya, that is a warrior. This aligns with Nietzsche's idea of the Ubermensch, who transcends moral relativism and weakness to assign his individual strength, purpose, and will. Nietzsche admired the Gita's valorization of action, responsibility, and the courage to fulfill one's destiny, which contrasted with what he saw as the slave morality of Christianity that promoted guilt and submission. Nietzsche criticized Western Christianity for promoting passivity, whereas he saw the Gita as a text and encouraged strength and assertiveness. One of his important book is Thus Spoke Zarathustra, translated by R.J. Hollingday, London Penguin, 1961. Now let us look into the Gita's influence on 20th century thinkers. As the Gita spread in Western academic and spiritual circles, it influenced psychologists, scientists, and writers. Carl Jung, a psychologist and self-realization, is very important in this context. The Swiss psychologist Carl Jung studied the Bhagavad Gita to understand human consciousness. He related Krishna's teachings to Arjuna to his own concept of individuation, the process of integration, different aspects of the self. Jung saw Krishna as the guiding self within each person, helping them overcome inner conflicts. He was very much influenced by one of the Bhagavad Gita sloka to understand the inner struggle and self-realization. The sloka reads like this: Uddharedatma natmanam natmanama vasadhayat atmaiva hruttono bunturatmaiva ripuratmanaha. The meaning of this sloka is: a person must uplift themselves by their own mind. Let them not degrade themselves, for the mind can be a friend or enemy of the self. In interpretation, Jung believed this verse describes the psychological battlefield between the ego and the higher self. He saw Krishna as a symbol of unconscious mind guiding Arjuna, the conscious self, towards realization. The American physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, known as the father of the atomic bomb, was deeply influenced by the Bhagavad Gita. To know about Bhagavad Gita, he came all the way from USA and stayed in India, learned Sanskrit and read Bhagavad Gita. It is one of the interesting cases which I have referred in my previous lectures also. After witnessing first atomic bomb test in 1945, he famously quoted Bhagavad Gita verse: Divya Surya Sahasrasya Bhavyedu Gabadita Yadasbhasadrusi Sasatbhasya Sasta Mahatmanaha. Another sloka he has referred from Bhagavad Gita after atomic bomb test in 1945. He famously quoted one more sloka, that is: Kalo yasmi lokakshaya krutva urdho lokansa mahurtumihi pravuttaha. The meaning of this sloka is: I am time, the destroyer of the world. In interpretation, Oppenheimer understood Krishna's words as a reflection on the destructive power of technology. The verse highlights the inevitability of change and destruction, much like the atomic bomb. The reference book is Thoreau, Henry David, Walden and Other Writings, New York publication, Modern Library 2000. The renowned English writer and philosopher Aldous Huxley was very much attracted with the Bhagavad Gita. Huxley viewed the Gita not merely a historical cultural text, but as a living scripture, offering insights into the nature of the self, that is Atma, the illusion of ego, and the path to liberation, that is moksha. He emphasized the Gita as a teachings of selfless action, that is karma yoga, which instructs individuals to perform their duties without attachment to the results, a concept that resonates with his own mystical and philosophical enquiries. He is known for his novel Brave New World. Was profoundly the Bhagavad Gita Huxley considered the Gita one of the greatest spiritual texts of humanity, describing it as a timeless manual for inner transformation and enlightenment. In his spiritual and philosophical masterpiece, The Perennial Philosophy, published in 1945, Huxley identified the Gita as a core expression of universal truth found across all great religious traditions. To Huxley, the Bhagavad Gita harmonizes Western wisdom with Western mysticism, bridging the contemplative traditions of both cultures. He admired it called for spiritual discipline, inward focus, and detachment from material concerns. In an age of dominated by materialism and existential confusion, Huxley saw the Gita as a guide to discovering the divine within. Through the writings and lectures, Huxley helped introduce the Bhagavad Gita spiritual insights to a Western audience, playing a key role in the early 20th century wave of global interest in Vedantic and Hindu thought. William Blake, a visionary, romantic poet and artist, was very much entangled with the Bhagavad Gita's mystical and spiritual ideas beyond traditional Christianity. Though Blake did not directly cite the Bhagavad Gita, the theme divine vision, eternal soul, and moral duty found in his works aligned with its teachings. Blake's portrayal of divine imagination and inner spiritual struggle resonate with Arjuna's moral crisis and Krishna's counsel. He shared the Gita's beliefs in the soul's immortality and the deeper reality beyond material life. Scholars have noted Blake's openness to Eastern wisdom and Wilkinson's translation likely contributed to the intellectual climate that shaped his thought. Another important scholar is Samuel Taylor Coleridge, who was very much influenced by a wide array of religious and philosophical traditions, including Indian thought. His interest in metaphysics and the relationship between the finite and infinite finds echoes in the Bhagavad Gita. Coleridge explored the idea of one life, a spiritual unity present in all beings. A concept resembling the Gita's teaching of eternal Atma, that is self. Through not direct commentator on the Gita, Coleridge moved in literary and intellectual circles that were absorbing Eastern texts like Wilkinson translation. His writings on imagination, transcendence, and duty mirror many Vedantic and Gita-like themes. I think everyone knows about T.S. Eliot. He is one of the most influential modern poets, explicitly acknowledged the impact of Indian scriptures, particularly the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads. In his works, The Wasteland, he refers to Hindu ideas, and in later works like Four Quarters, his deep engagement with the Eastern spirituality becomes clear. Eliot admired the Gita's focus on renunciation, detachment, and spiritual discipline. He studied Sanskrit and was influenced by the Gita's teaching of Karma Yoga, acting without attachment to outcomes. The spiritual stillness and timeless wisdom at the heart of the Gita shaped Eliot's poetic vision, especially his search for spiritual renewal amidst modern chaos. Eliot later incorporated themes from Bhagavad Gita into his poetry, especially in The Wasteland. Now let us look into the influence of Bhagavad Gita on French philosophers. French philosophers like Victor Cousin and Romain Rolland was very much attracted by the Bhagavad Gita. Both of them studied Bhagavad Gita. Romain Rolland, a Nobel Prize winner, writer, described the Bhagavad Gita as one of the deepest books humanity has ever produced. The name of the book is The Life of Vivekananda and the Universal Gospel, Calcutta, Advaita Ashrama, 1947. It has been published. Now let us look into the Bhagavad Gita's influence on American transcendentalists. In the 19th century, the American transcendentalist movement found deep inspiration in Indian philosophy, especially in the teaching of Bhagavad Gita. Thinkers like Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau engaged profoundly with its spiritual vision. The Gita's emphasis on inner discipline, self-realization, and harmony with nature resonate with their core beliefs. Thoreau, during his retreat at Walden Pond, regularly read the Gita, described as it as a source of daily spiritual nourishment. He famously wrote, I quote here about his writings. In the morning, I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogonic philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial. Emerson also similarly admired the Gita's call for fearless action and self-reliant living, for both the Gita represented a timeless guide to inner truth, far beyond the boundaries of geography of religion, harmonizing with their quest of universal spirituality. The reference is Thoreau Henry David. The title of the book is Walden and Other Writings, New York, Modern Library, published in 2000. Before concluding, let us summarize the essence of the Gita's entry into the Western intellectual traditions. As we conclude this exploration into Gita's transmission into Western thought, it becomes clear that the ancient Indian scripture has not remained confined within the borders of one culture or religion. Rather, the Bhagavad Gita has emerged as a global philosophical text, shaping diverse domains of thought in the West, from metaphysics to psychology, from poetry to politics, and from personal ethics to corporate leadership. The translation by Charles Wilkinson in 1785 was the first crucial link in this global journey. His work made Indian spiritual wisdom accessible to Western minds, sparkling an intellectual curiosity that would ripple through the centuries. Philosophers like Schopenhauer engaged deeply with its ideas of detachment and renunciation, seeing in the Gita an answer to the Western existential dilemmas. Nietzsche, in contrast, admired its bold call to action and self-overcoming, aligning it with the idea of Ubermensch. Writers and poets such as Eliot Smith, Romain Rolland found literary and spiritual beauty in its verses. Transcendentalists like Thoreau and Emerson saw in the Gita a sublime roadmap for personal enlightenment and inner harmony, blending Eastern introspection with Western individualism. Even in contemporary fields like business ethics and leadership studies, the Gita is invoked to emphasize moral actions, duty without attachment, and the cultivation of inner stability amidst external chores, principles that are increasingly vital in complex globalized world. The Gita teaches us that action performed without self-desire, rooted in dharma and guided by a higher vision, is the key to true freedom. This message, through born in the spiritual soil of Bharat, speaks to all of humanity. Its ability to resonate across cultures, it is accidental. It speaks to the universal human condition, addressing the eternal conflict between doubt and duty, self and society, desire and detachment. As students, scholars, and seekers, let us recognize that the Gita is not just a relic of India's spiritual past. It is a living text, ever relevant, ever illuminating, and through its Western journey. It reminds us that the search for truth, meaning, and purpose known from all over the world without borders. Let this lecture inspire to delve deeper, not just into the Gita's verses, but into the eternal questions it compels us to ask. The final thought of Bhagavad Gita is the Bhagavad Gita, once a hidden gem of Indian philosophy, became a cornerstone of Western intellectual thought, providing that great ideas know no borders. Thank you very much for your kind attention and hearing this discussion. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. For the first time, I made an attempt to understand the Bhagavad Gita, how it is transformed to the Western world. If there are any mistakes, please forgive me. If you like this discussion, please forward to your friends, group people, students, scholars, and others. Please subscribe this channel to know more about Hindu culture and traditions. Thank you very much. Hope we will meet you in another discussion. Thank you.
त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे